views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, it's nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to people who put something out in the Bronx. I'm not people who put out in the Bronx, but people who put something out in the Bronx. We started out with writers and editors and journalists and reporters and and we still do a lot of that, but we've expanded it. So we do photographers and writers and editors, and in some cases, organizations that are putting out a very, very interesting map about the borough of the Bronx, and we're going to tell you about that in a second. And the second part of our show, we're going to talk to a Bronx muralist who is doing something that's like all artwork. It's not only for the artwork, it's to have some effect. So we'll deal with that in a few moments. But right now, let's say hello to Brian Glover from the Bronx Council of the Arts. Nice to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Gary. Thank you.
Brian is the deputy, to be formal, the deputy director of grants and programs at BCA. So before we get into this cultural map, which is for those of us who live in the Bronx and work in the Bronx and cover the Bronx, is very exciting. I'm just so curious, how's BCA doing? It's been a very rough year, not for profits, for profits. Everybody's having a hard time. Where are you guys at? What's going on?
Yeah, like with many people, we've been working from home largely. The work's been intense, but we've been fortunate enough that we've been able to continue to serve artists and arts organizations in the Bronx through online programming. We've been able to continue our services, such as improving the cultural assets map, which we're going to talk about. We have grants programs that are continuing, a little bit delayed.
And expanding, yes.
Expanding, yeah, we'll talk a little about that as well. So we are fortunate that we've been, we've had some personnel reductions, but we've, dug in and really worked hard to try to continue the services we have to artists and arts organizations in the borough.
One more kind of conditional question about what's going on. My sense is, and from talking to artists who've been on our programs and people that I just know, is that artists, and of course in the Bronx, artists are everywhere, have done well from an artistic point of view. If you are frustrated or you need to express or you need to create beauty just to get yourself out of what's going on and you're cooped up, well, goodness gracious, I don't want to say it's the proper cauldron, to really create something of passion. Do you have a sense, like I'm assuming, that Bronx artists are really being particularly creative during this time?
It's been a wide variety of stories that I've heard. There's some artists who have found the solitude and being at home a boon to their creativity. Then there's other artists who, particularly performing artists, right? Because a lot of the ways they sustain themselves is through getting out and connecting with people. But it really runs the gamut. Even some performing artists have been able to adapt to Zoom and do things online. But I've heard a lot of both positive and negative effects.
So I guess I was looking at it with rose-colored glasses, but what you say is true.
Yeah.
If you perform, you get the feedback from the audience and certainly musicians and others, and all of a sudden that's not there. And I know many musicians who've been running, I can think three right off the top of my head: an opera singer, a folk singer, and a rhythm and blues singer. There's your Bronx for you. That have been doing Zoom things, so they've been making the best. All right. Anyway, let's get to it.
One more thing to that,
Sure.
that performing artists who have been able to pivot has been wonderful for them. But even some writers, for example, a lot of times they get inspiration from being out in the community and connecting, listening to people.
Right. Sitting in your room watching the news, that's not helpful.
Yeah.
All right. Let's really talk about this cultural assets map.
Sure.
What is it? Who is it? Why is it? All of the above.
So, a few years ago, our executive director had an idea about putting in a cultural assets map of the borough, just to sort of have a centralized place where we can sort of see visually on a map where the cultural assets are in the community. And also a part of so a lot of this comes from the idea that mapping is a strategy for building strong communities, increasing community engagement. And so we thought we'd do a map that would list the cultural assets around the borough, various cultural assets from individual artists, organizations, and museums, and then also put in alignment with that some development information so that people can see where development might impact artists and arts organizations.
And so as I understand it, and from some of the things that I've seen, it wasn't like, you guys just sitting in a room doing it. You really went out and had people give input. I was going to ask you, and you started to do it already, to define the word assets, which you've already done. I'm thinking off the top of my head, gee, it'd be nice to know, artists or members of the Bronx Council of the Arts or BRIO winners, where in the borough they're from. I mean, once you do that, you can really, this is green, this is blue, I love the whole concept.
Well, what's really great and why I appreciate the invitation to speak on it is that, we're not going to populate the map just based on the putting people on there. We're actually doing a survey, and we want individuals and organizations to actually fill out a survey to get placed on the map, because we want people to self-identify where they are and what information they want, because, we're collecting data and we're sensitive to privacy issues. So there's a number of ways they can choose to be listed on the map.
Right. Very, very interesting.
Yes.
Go ahead, Brian.
No, I was just going to say, so I think you're right. It's great to be able to see where people are located in the borough, BCA affiliated or not, and also to see, what are some of the ways that, there's a lot of stuff happening in the Bronx, development happening all over the place. We're actually working right now. We've recently, this year, we began a relationship with Lehman professor, Juliana Monte, on developing new maps that will show areas more at risk of gentrification. So there's a lot that we want to do to have.
I love that, and another part of it, which you just glossed over, is that you're working with an academic institution. So it's not just the Council of the Arts. Now we're going to take it and have it have effect. And of course, preaching to the choir, we believe that arts, are really what are the foundations, certainly in the BX. I mean, that's who we are, and to be able to define it and look at neighborhoods and then use an academician to sit there and say, well, wait a minute, if you're doing this here but not here, and you have this sort of social or economic or other problem, I really like it. How can people see the map, learn about the map, participate in the program? Because, I'm going to assume BronxNet Television is in there. And if not, we got to make sure we are, because who else is putting out arts more than we are, other than you, of course.
Yeah, so I mean, it's great. It's a great point you made. Not only we're working with academic institution, but also we get data from the city and census tract data. So the way that people can participate is to go to our website. On our website, in fact, we have a prominent slider now that talks about the cultural assets map. They can click on that slide and they can click on one of two surveys, whether they want to participate as an individual or an organization, and get their information represented on the map.
BronxArts.org?
BronxArts.org, yes.
How did I know that off the top of my head? Been there, Anyway, listen, the other thing, I mentioned the BRIO Awards, but the Bronx Council of the Arts does an incredible job funding and providing grants and providing, ways of people doing, the next level. There's a new grant portfolio, which is going to be real helpful, I think, to a broad number of people. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's our Bronx Cultural Visions Fund, which we're happy to be partnering with the Howard Gilman Foundation. And it's giving us the resources to provide some larger grants, particularly specifically to performing artists, dancers, theater makers, musicians. And there'll be a couple of different ways they can participate, either developing concepts over the course of a year or actually doing a production. So these grants will be $10,000 or $20,000. And we're really happy to be able to, be able to put that out there specifically after what happened, all of 2020.
Right. Well, and who should be looking at it? How should they be looking at it? Are we in a position now to talk about the dollars involved? I mean, or other considerations?
Yes. So we're going to be able to, so the people who can look at it would be performing artists in the Bronx, or performing arts organizations. Those who want to get funding to develop a concept over the course of a year will be given $10,000 in support to do that. Those who want to actually do a production will be given $20,000 to do that.
Whoa.
This will be like our normal grant.
Excuse me. Sorry. No, this
So
is
we're really
just,
happy about that. We're really happy.
oh man, it's
So
beautiful.
we're going to have an application process like we normally do. It's going to kick off on June 15th. Was an application will open. The guidelines will be available online probably by June 1st. And, it's going to basically be open to Bronx artists and Bronx organizations. We're looking really to reach people who maybe are emerging artists, people who haven't had a chance yet to get this kind of funding to make a real impact in their career.
Wow. What I'm particularly, we want you and all the artists to come back when you get somebody who's getting funded to do a production of some sort, presumably filmmaker, theater. I mean, boy, with 20 grand and you're a theater, and we've got, I'm again preaching to the choir, we've got theaters here. We got space you could use.
Yes.
I mean, whether it be, you mentioned Lehman, the Lovenger Theater, or larger if you need over there. Pergona's there. I mean, they're everywhere. The theater at Hostos. I mean, there's a ton of good stuff. Well, this all sounds great. So really, the key that unlocks it all is bronxarts.org. Is that that's what we're talking about?
Unlocks it all.
Other than what we've just talked about, do you have anything else that you wanted to mention in the few seconds we have left about what you got coming up, or what people should have their ear to the ground about?
Well, I'll just say that all our information is really available on bronxarts.org. And I just say that reach out to us. We like to be connected to community. And we have our community engagement grants, which will be opening up again later this summer, which is an annual grants we give to people who are doing arts activities connected to communities.
And there are just so many. And, this, again, there could also be people who, again, we know everybody's been cooped up. They've been cooped up for a little while, and they say, you know what I always wanted to do? It's hard to say. I'm out of work, or, I've got the time, let's put it that way. And so now I'm going to paint, or I wanted to write, or I wanted to play music, or do something a little better, or get a little band together or something like that. And the Emerging Artists Grant, there it is. Checkbox right there. Listen, Brian Glover, thank you so much. Say hello to all my buddies over there at the Bronx Council of the Arts, and bronxarts.org. As I said, that's the key that unlocks it all. And, think about the Bronx. Without the arts, then you don't have the Bronx.
Yeah. Wonderful arts and Bronx.
All right, listen, take care, Brian. Listen, we'll be right back. We're going to do a muralist talking about arts. We're going to talk a muralist who did an art piece right next to a high school. And it's all about changing the way that we live for the better. We'll be right back.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. This is going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. And since we talked about artists and emerging artists and artists in the Bronx and art in the Bronx and people getting opportunities in art in the Bronx in our last segment, let's now talk to Lola Lovenote, who's a muralist, which I didn't even know there was such a word, but it is a muralist. I just call them artists.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Lola, and thanks for
Hi.
joining us.
Nice to meet you, Gary. Thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. Let's just talk about you as an artist, where you grew up and what made you an artist. How did you get there? From A to B. How did we do it?
Well, I am a Bronx born and raised artist. I still live in the Bronx. I'm still a resident here. I started as an artist, I guess, when I was a kid. I've just always been an artist. And as I got older, I realized my passion is painting public art. So that's how I became a muralist. Honestly, I started in street art. I would do a lot of murals just without really knowing that they were called murals until I went to college, and then I kind of started just meeting more people in that community, and I realized that this is a legitimate title and you can create art, and this is an actual artist job. It's a little bit more specific.
A profession. How about that?
Profession,
It's a profession.
exactly. And you can make a career in it,
I'm really sorry, but I'm delving into the next level. So you said I decided that I wanted to. I'm being like your therapist now. You said I decided I wanted to put it on a wall. I wanted to make public art. What is that? I'm always interested in an artist's muse. What is it about doing that really makes it exciting, as opposed to even doing the same thing or something similar on a piece of painting or a paper or canvas or something like that?
I think just like being able to have more than your own eyes and your friends and family seeing your art, you're putting it out into the public. So there's a larger audience for you, right? So that for me is what was exciting about that. Also,
Excuse me, a larger audience. There's actually a public audience, and believe
Right.
me, somebody who sits in the studio and talks into a little camera thing, I know the limitations of that. Whereas if you do it, and then even if they don't know it's you, and they walk by, and then you see people go, "Oh, look at that," that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's
Yeah, that's
honestly,
beautiful. That's wonderful.
I don't think it even, honestly, like growing up, a big part of it was like, you want that kind of recognition that this is your art on the wall, but just knowing, because I grew up in the Bronx, I didn't have a lot in the communities that I grew up in. There wasn't a lot
You
of
want to
art.
name what those communities are?
In the Bronx, I grew up around Fordham Road, University Avenue, Grand Concourse. I live in Parkchester now. So I lived around all of the Bronx, and just I didn't see a lot of art on the walls that catered to the just kind of like youthful art, which is kind of the type of art that I make, and just art that I related to. So once I got older, I realized that I wanted to give back to the communities that I'm from, and let them see things that normally you wouldn't see walking down the street in those neighborhoods.
Aside from the one that we're going to really focus on that you have most recently completed, are there ones, let's be specific, in the Bronx that you've done that you say, you know what, I like that one. That one came out pretty good. Or anywhere. And I got a nice list of where you've been featured, which is impressive. But I've got to start there in the BX.
Honestly, so the Gen Equality mural that I just finished, that is, I think, my largest project for the Bronx. I haven't really painted anything of that nature that large.
Okay, so now you're going to do that because Gary asked you to do it. And you got it. Come on.
I'm open to more opportunities. I think that. So I painted in Brooklyn. I also kind of grew up in Brooklyn too.
All right, wait, hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Painted murals for the Bushwick Collective.
Yes.
Emmy-nominated fashion-related competition show Project Runway, the Meadows Music and Arts Festival. Okay, so
Yes.
did I help you there? Are we doing okay there?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I've painted on a larger scale, and so, but my biggest passion is painting for community, and so thankfully I was given big jobs where I was able to create a portfolio for now. So now I'm applying to more community-based projects, you know, where those projects do want to see that you're from the community, that you care about the community, and that's something that is important to me. So now I'm like very like driven towards creating more in the Bronx for sure.
Okay, so let's not be self-conscious about creating the Bronx or not. I'm going back to my question, and my question was, um, tell me about some stuff that you did in the past that you say, you know what, and I'm not talking ones that
Oh,
got
okay.
awards or anything else, that you say, this one I like.
So there was this project I did where I was commissioned to paint for, it was called Make Room, the doors of Make Room. So basically it was a Washington DC initiative based on the affordable rent crisis in America. So they flew me out over there and we created these doors where the doors represented the housing crisis. So we had to paint these doors reflecting on what that means for a United States resident and the rent affordability situation. And so my door was definitely talking about gentrification in New York City, gentrification in the Bronx, especially, and our urban communities, and how that is affecting the environment and affecting the people in those communities. For me, that was like an eye opener of what I can do with my art politically, socially, talking about things that are important for the people in my community. So that I just, the whole project as a whole was something that I love to do.
And to make a change. And I have to say, without trying unintentionally, both segments, the cultural assets map that the Bronx Council of the Arts talked about in our first segment, they're going to work with Lehman College to figure out if art is here, what social factors are happening. Is this a neighborhood that's ripe for gentrification? Is this a neighborhood that has extreme poverty, or any of the other
And that's
issues?
it's really important to talk about that, because even as a muralist, like one of the first things I realized once I started painting a large scale was that, am I contributing to gentrification? You know,
Right.
that was a question as an artist that you have to, as a muralist, you have to really ask yourself.
Especially in the Bronx.
Especially in the Bronx,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
So that's definitely something that I think about with the work that I'm creating, and how can I give back to the community without hurting the community.
And what you've done now is add a second point to when I asked why you do it, and to have social change, why you put stuff out, because if you do it that way, maybe you can have effect not only on the people who like your work, but on the whole community. Now,
Exactly.
we've done all that introduction. Let's talk about the one that you just completed.
Yeah, so Gen Equality, they started a creative initiative to create murals across the 5 boroughs.
Now,
So we
what is
had
that, John?
a Gen Equality.
Gen Equality.
So it's,
GEN Equality.
yep.
Got it.
And so they worked with 5 muralists from each borough who are residing in those boroughs, and we worked with the communities to create the mural. So I worked with the International Community High School in the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx, and we worked with the students and the staff to create a mural that they felt reflected the theme of inclusive safety, which inclusive safety is basically, you know, no matter where you're from, no matter what you look like, what your gender, what your sexuality is, what your race, ethnicity, you deserve to be treated with safety, fairness, equality, you know,
Respect.
respect above
RESPECT.
all. Exactly. So we worked with different communities from each borough, but for me, I was in the Bronx with the
And
international.
let's be specific. You said it was on Brook and 141st Street. Well, you didn't say it here. You told me it was
Oh,
on
right,
Brook.
right. So right.
You said it was the
Earlier.
International Community High School, but it was Brook and 141st Street. And
Yes.
I'll tell you, I mean, I've seen it. I didn't see it live. I have to say, I'm going to get down there. We will
Oh,
see
yes.
it. But you know, it's what's the word? It's just you can't not be affected if you walk by. You can't walk by and say, or not even notice. You know, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yes,
Right?
yes. It's very large, it's bright, it's colorful, and that's exactly what we wanted to do when painting it.
Do you know how large? Gary's going
No,
like this
because
on my Zoom box, you know.
no, they kind of were like, here's a wall we have. I didn't measure it. I just kind of created the sketch, and I knew, like, just from looking at it, how large I wanted to go in order for it to impact the community.
Yeah, and have the effect that you want to have. I always wondered about this with the muralists, and you're here and you're going to have to answer the question. And that is, a lot of the surfaces that you work on, whether, you know, this, I think this was pure brick, you know, traditional brick, right?
Yes.
But, you know, there's a wall like by a parking lot near where I live that is kind of stone and it's a bit uneven.
Hmm.
And of course, there are cement walls, there's cement block walls. Um, does that take effect? Do you ever say, I ain't doing that wall, nobody will make something in that? Or do you use the you know, the surface of the wall as part of what you're working on?
You could totally, I think as an artist, it's important to, like, meet, problem solve, right? So I've never looked at a wall and said I can't paint it. There's a way to paint it. You just have to have the right materials, So spray paint usually is helpful when painting kind of, rugged surfaces like that, or a paint, or a brush and a
Mhm.
house paint. But
You know, I'm completely self-serving here. Because I was thinking about, you know, because you said about painting walls, making the community better. I thought of my own neighborhood, but the wall that I'm talking about is not a smooth wall. You'd have to use that in some form. So,
well,
so
send
hey,
me a photo
Lola,
and
you
I'll
want?
come by.
I was gonna say, you want to come by and take care of it? It's just right out the
100%.
window.
100%.
Anyway, so do you have something planned for next, or are you pretty much, you know, like, do you wait and see what comes up? I mean,
Yeah,
it's an interesting
both.
time. Yeah.
It's an interesting time. I'm super excited to get back into painting outside. It's nice weather now. The great thing about being a muralist and the unfortunately, COVID-19 is horrible, but there's a lot, we need space, right? Like, we're not really going into indoor spaces often anymore. So there's more opportunity to paint murals outside. I think the mayor just, like, is going to
I believe
commission.
that's actually true.
Yeah.
And
So
goodness, you know, we could say we're running out of time. I
sorry.
do
Yeah.
want you to talk about where people can find you in social media. I'm just curious, and you'll have to answer very quickly. Was this a particularly fertile time for you as an artist, being cooped up and everything else, or was it a difficult time because you couldn't get out?
It was difficult. It was
Wow.
difficult. I think just, like, life circumstances really was hard for me to get into the groove. But this mural back here in my kitchen, this is something I painted with my partner. So we painted this mural during the COVID-19
All is not
quarantine.
lost. All is not lost. What can I
Exactly.
tell you? Listen,
So
so go through your social media real quick.
so my
The website, you got to check out the website. There's a ton of great stuff on there.
yes, my website is lovenotesnyc.com. So just Love Notes NYC. You can find me at Instagram, or you can just Google Love Notes NYC and I'll pop up. But my Instagram is at Love Notes, Lovenotes. Yeah, I have a project coming up with Party on Park in Harlem. So I'll be painting a mural with them.
Great.
Harlem, 125th and Lexington, or sorry, 125th and Park Avenue.
And then the next
Um,
time you're going to do one in the Bronx, you're going to let us know, because we'll send people to it. Because Gary wants to go out. I'm a terrible artist, but, you know, did
Come
you
help
use other
me.
people?
You can be. I used during the gender
Okay.
equality. I used the public.
We,
So many people helped us paint that.
okay, listen, Lola, thank you so much. We got to go. We'll see you soon. Good night.